Good evening, America. I'm Logan Matheny with Fox Evening News. Tonight, we have several stories to get to. First off, looks like the Jets made the playoffs. Woo! This year, no thanks to their quarterback troubles, but Mr. Geno Smith, they'll be looking to bring home the Lombardi Trophy to New York this year. Also, we have a group of cadets here from the United States Military Academy who will be discussing the recent success stories, failures, and tensions raised by an exercise in their American politics class known as the CIMEX. But for tonight's main story, over the course of the last several months, our country has been eagerly awaiting what will become of the BESTA bill, which will likely shape our country's energy policy for the foreseeable future. Tonight, we are fortunately joined by the Speaker of the House, Mr. McFarland, and the Majority Whip, Mr. Mott. Mr. Speaker, tonight I'd like to ask you a couple questions. Mr. Mott, you as well, please add to the conversation and provide whatever input.
It's a pleasure to be here. I love your network.
Thank you. So the first question tonight is, could you guys talk a little bit about the current climate surrounding the BESTA bill, and what amendments do you plan on bringing to the floor?
Well, I'll answer this one. We have a bill, as it stands, that no one is comfortable with. We have We're trying to push forward amendments that create a bill that the Republicans and the Democrats can both live with. Not compromising our values, not compromising what Republicans need to get done, what we need to see in a bill, but finding common ground. We don't need to get 100% of everything we want. If we can get 60%, if we can get 70%, it would be infinitely better than the bill as it stands right now. So specifically, what amendments? For funding, an example. Funding is one of those issues where there's a clear line in the sand. We're not going to settle for anything less than 45 or 50% of the funding for the bill coming from cuts in government. Excellent. And that's something we can't negotiate beyond that. Mm-hmm. That being said, we are trying to reach some sort of agreements with the Democrats. I've been talking with the minority leader, and to allow a slight rise in the fines for employers to offset the elimination of tax breaks on fossil fuel companies. So that's one example.
Mr. Mott, if you would like to add, perhaps, to this question, what would you say is the most important aspect of the bill that we're looking at this time, whether we're trying to compromise? Which of the four categories do you think is the most important?
I would say definitely the environmental impacts. As Majority Whip, it's going to be difficult to maintain party unity in this particular aspect. A lot of fellow Republicans are not going to want to compromise in this, especially a lot of their own interests lie in just lax environmental restrictions. But I think compromising is the only way, the only political move that we can use as of now to leverage the rest. So we're going to need party unity on that particular one. I think that's the most important.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Mr. Mott. Second question, Mr. Speaker, you talked a lot about compromise and the common ground. Have you been working with the minority leader to try and decide on what the best policy is for both parties on this? Could you just talk a little bit about your interactions with him?
Right. I've been working aggressively with the Democratic minority leader, and as Congressman Mott talked about, one of our compromises in this process has been environmental impacts, because the idea is to instead of creating a bill that would not only hurt the moderates but also the people on either extreme, we don't exactly want a moderate bill. we want a bill that's balanced but not moderate. We don't want to go down the middle on everything, because frankly, there are too many people in in my primary concern is my party who couldn't live with a bill that strays that far from their base constituency.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Congressman Mott talked about, with regards to environmental impacts, that's a bone we're going to throw at the Democrats. We're going to say, we're going to let this one go your way. This is going to go your way. The main bulk of the bill, the subsidies for fossil fuel extraction and investment, that's going to us.
Excellent. All right. I'll go ahead and move on to the third question. So, could you tell me a little bit about how both of you, respectively, how the congressmen, especially within your own party, how receptive they've been to your plan and proposals? Start with you, Mr. Mott.
Based upon when I was sitting in one of the committee meetings, they weren't really willing to compromise, from what I interpreted it as, and I think I'm going to have to definitely step up my game a little bit and try to maybe disseminate some information, giving them a little bit of background to why we want the compromise.
Mr. Speaker, same question.
I would say that it's very torn. I would say I wouldn't go so far as to say that there's a majority of the Republicans who are opposed to this this solution that me and the minority leader and the Republican and the Democratic whips have come up with. But there is certainly a very vocal minority in the Republican Party who are aggressively opposed, specifically to that one thing we're going to give the Democrats, environmental impacts. They're opposed to the expansion of EPA jurisdiction. And absolutely, we're going to have to see if we can exert more pressure from our end, and redistribute political capital that we're able to gain, to be able to reward people. We're not all about punishing; we're about rewarding too.
Excellent.
And we want to reward those who make the tough but right choice.
Excellent. Thank you. And the final question: have interest groups or various presidential advisors played a hand in what you all have been trying to accomplish? Have you been contacting them, reaching out to them? Have they been contacting you? How has that relationship affected your policies at all? Or is it non-existent, rather, would you say?
I would say that it's certainly not non-existent. But with that regard, interest groups have been a large part an obstacle. It's one of those reasons why we don't have complete Republican unity, because again we want to push for some hard choices, and the interest groups seem to be more focused on picking off people that are on the fence as opposed to working with a majority or even a minority coalition. So I don't know how this cherry-picking strategy is going to work for them, but I think our main concern is pushing forward, because we don't represent interest groups, we don't represent big oil, we don't represent the EPA, we represent the American people. So we're trying to cut through as much of the clutter as we can, and have a discussion straight with the heart of the American people.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, personally, I haven't been affected by any of the interest groups directly, but I believe that they're the reason why many Republicans seem to be capitulating to the Democrats. I think that they're the main cause of dissent among the party, and I think that they need to be dealt with swiftly and effectively if we're to maintain a compromise on the bill.
I will say one thing.
Please do.
The Republican leadership has not accepted anything. We've accepted nothing from interest groups. And I don't think you can say the same of other major players. But we're focused on getting the best results for our constituents, even if it's more difficult in the short term.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much for speaking with us tonight. This is Logan P with Fox News reporting, and remember, fair and balanced.
Veterans Day, a time to reflect upon the service, sacrifice, and duty of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who dedicated their life to serving these great United States. As we come to think about this on this one day, remember that we should always think about those who put their lives on the line on a daily basis, and those who have put their lives on the line to protect America from evils in the past. So on this Veterans Day, remember those who have given that much more to secure your freedoms. Thank you.
As our country eagerly awaits the vote from the House that will be held this Friday, we would like to conclude tonight's program by reminding our viewers that Fox News will be there to cover every aspect of this historical event with fair and balanced coverage. Good night. All right. Good.
Yeah, I think we're good.